I'm going to take you through my first 7 days with Miss Molly here. This is my new little filly. She's 3 years old, grade quarter horse, and she's going to be a project for me hoof-wise and training-wise. With her feet, they were very long, just to her being largely unhandled. I think they've been trimmed once, like in the past year. And so I'll be getting x-rays and I'll make a whole video, my predictions of what's in the x-rays and the x-ray results, but I haven't done that yet. I did get, in this first week, a full trim on her, not all in one day. So a big part is going to be rehabbing the feet. She's got a lot of lamina separation, not from like a diet-induced laminitis, but just from the hoof walls being so long. She's starting to get the underrun heels, and it's going to take a lot. Hoof trimming, diet, which I will also go over what I'm doing for her diet, and then movement. Right now she's just in a 65-foot round pen. We're working, she's already gotten so much more comfortable on being haltered, but I can't quite put her out on the 8 acres yet. So she's gonna be living in here for a little while. I tried to capture the most important parts of each day that I worked with her, just to get a little view into the process of a pretty serious rehab case like this, while also working with a horse that's not really trained. This is a huge part of hoof trimming, especially in a case like this. You really want to take your time and focus and measure and do all this stuff, and if the horse doesn't really know how to hold up their leg, it definitely creates another component in there. So I'm really excited for her journey, and I hope that you guys are too. Picking up this foot, I just first wanted to assess it before I started doing any trimming. And what I was pointing out here was that the heels were very long and sucked under and not worn very much, and the toe hoof wall was worn, and that the whole foot is stretched forward, and how small and shrunken the frog is, and how it's not making any ground contact. And her being sensitive there to me poking at it tells me that frog needs stimulation. It needs to get stronger. I was also trying to not take too long to do this because I know she had a limited amount of patience, and I had to give her foot a rest there. And there I was just trying to measure the collateral groove depth at the tip of her frog, and her bars are pretty overgrown, so it was a little bit difficult to do, but I knew she does not have paper thin soles. And again, she was really wanting her foot back a lot, so I kept having to give her breaks and really balance taking as long as I might want to do this, to just getting a trim on her and at least getting her more comfortable and just doing more and more little trims. So there I wanted to just give her a rest because she was holding well for me. So I wanted to balance taking down too much heel height where she couldn't do a heel first landing, because if you make the heels too short, it's harder and harder for them to do a heel first landing. And then that there is not sole. It is a really overgrown bar that I took down just somewhat. And I was just trying to expose to see what was going on there with my rasp and bringing those heels to be more even without taking a ton of height. Giving her more rest, just trying to stay with her until she relaxed to me. With a horse that has this much wall separation, it's really important to do that quarter arch, especially on those huge flares. Quarter arch is not something I do on all horses I trim by any means, but on her it is applicable. And I'm really wanting to check out these bars here without, again, taking the sole at all. And sometimes you want to leave more bar, and I did not take these bar down all the way as I would maybe on a horse with a nice beautiful concave sole, but I just wanted to match what I was doing with the hoof wall, because I want the bars here to support her, certainly, but I don't want them to bear the full weight of her either. I don't want too much pressure on them, but I don't want to take them down too low. And here is where I'm really taking the biggest chunks of hoof off. So far, I really had not trimmed a ton of material, and again, had to give her a little break there. But I am trimming the toe technically beyond the white line that you can see, but it's behind that white line. It's a bit of a false white line. It is the, there's so much lamellar wedge in there. And this is where I definitely took off a large amount of toe, but I also am waiting to get her x-rays, so I probably will end up taking more toe here. I just wanted to start to get that back. And as I was saying, I was going beyond the white line you can see, but it's not really a true white line because of how much lamellar wedge she has. Where the true white line should be is much farther back because that toe is so stretched forward. And then here she let me pull her foot forward on my leg, and I just smoothed out kind of the rough edges that had been created from the bottom. On this other front foot, I was doing a similar thing at first, wanting to see what was happening, try and measure the collateral groove depth. Again, she's being a little bit wiggly. And what I noted here in, that quick measurement was that she did have a much deeper collateral groove at the front here, which let me know there was more sole there. So I was going to be a little more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but a little more closer to what I would do on a standard hoof here with trimming the bars, because I know she doesn't have a paper thin sole here. So I am going to do it to relieve the pressure that the bars can cause. It's all a balance and deciding what's most important for what horse. And I just like to rasp a little bit to expose and kind of see where things are, and again make sure the foot is really cleaned out. And I was seeing how much those bars were standing up and could stand up, without, again, taking too much time to try to make sure the foot's perfectly clean or make her hold her leg up for longer. And what I was doing here was tapering the bars, because I was going to leave some heel height, just like I did on the other front. And I want it to be a kind of an arch from the bars up to where the heels go. I don't want it to just be the bars are all low and the heels high. I want them to swoop up to where I was going to leave the heels. So that's what I was working on. And again, you can see this frog is pretty deep in there too. And because I am being more cautious, this is the first trim and I am going to get her x-ray still, I was opting to do more with my rasp than my nippers, especially on the heels. Any large amount you take off the heels, it really can be a big adjustment and change to them. All the tendons and ligaments in the legs have to stretch out more when they're standing and when they're walking, and I want to keep that heel first landing. So I was going for more of a, just take some heel height down today and definitely probably take more soon. And she had pretty much chips or close to it in these quarters already, and there's flare. So I was doing a little bit of that quarter arch there, kind of swooping downward, coming closer to the sole plane, starting at the hoof wall, because all these problems, or not all of them, many of them in her hooves have been because the hoof wall has been too overloaded because the hooves have been too long. So there's too much weight on the hoof walls and not enough on the rest of the hoof. So while I'm leaving the heels high, I still want to take the walls down lower. And I'm just, and here cleaning up more with the bonsai nippers. And again, measuring here where the true tip of the frog is and how much foot she has in front of there, and calculating out where the coffin bone in reality is and where I'm going to take that toe back to today, because the foot there was already to the white line you could see. So I'm nipping back probably a half an inch more into that lamellar wedge, not into live sole, even though it may look like that. By reading the hoof, I know that's not what it is. It's just that stretched lamellar wedge is what comes when the lamina gets so stretched and pulled, the hoof wall gets pulled away from the coffin bone like that. And here I was just readjusting her. When you're asking a horse to pick up their foot, it's important that you're asking for the hoof that's not bearing the most weight, because horses stand on diagonals, and so there is usually one front foot, or there is always one front foot that is bearing more weight. So I was just readjusting to make it easier for her to pick that foot up for me. And there I was assessing perhaps where her true white line should be, even though it's not anywhere near where it is. And I was wanting to start that bevel a little farther back to bring that breakover a little bit farther back to where it should be. Lamellar wedge is not as strong as normal hoof wall, so I'm not bringing it back right to where it should be, because that would be too much and would not be enough protection for her. And there I was pointing out how the tubules are getting sucked under the hooves because those heels became underrun and were left far too long, but that I was not wanting to take any weight-bearing surface away. And in fact, I want to bring the weight-bearing surface back as far as possible when they have underrun heels, because that weight is being, with the long toe and the underrun heels, the weight is all so much more forward than it should be.
What happened?
Coming in on this back right, she is very nervous about picking up her feet, and I actually have my mom scratching her, so she'll let me do this. And I'm having to prioritize oh my God, a balance of training, trimming, and just needing to get it done. So I'm going to taper these bars. I am having to do this as quick as I can because I don't know her patience. She's got these huge flares, so I'm going to take these down. Relieve all that. She's been dragging her back toes, so I'm hoping that giving a trim will help with that. And I'm not going to be... This is just kind of a rough first trim to get some of this length off. I likely will come back and trim more. And I don't want to overdo it too much. Like this frog, it probably could be cleaned up, but I don't want to do more than I need to this first time. I want to get these bars standing upright. I'd rather be more conservative now and come back. Like, see there, her sole's shedding, but I'm not going to shed out her sole at the same time I'm giving her this trim. I was just working here on standing up this bar a little bit. It was really going out into the sole without taking too much and tapering it up to the heels. I'm not taking the whole bar down. I was having an arch up to meet where the heels are so it can flow and be a weight-bearing surface, and always checking the balance as I work. And choosing to just take some heel height here. Yes, I'm using my nippers, but I was not taking a large amount off. It's a huge adjustment to lower the heels a lot, and I don't want her to be tender on her heels, while also balancing the fact that they were very long and really sucked under her feet. So I wanted to cut off some to kind of get the fresh tubules, and also it just was way too sucked under there. And I was pointing out here how the back of the frog is way behind the back of the heel. Ideally, you want those to line up. So that's going to be a big process with her, is slowly getting those heels back in line with the frog and standing that heel up. Again, I can know, yeah, we've got 2 inches in front here. And I'm going, the tip of the coffin bone is probably around here. So you want to start her bevel back here maybe. Or I should say up here, more forward. Here I come. And again, I may like to bring the toe back even more, but I'm not going to do it all at once today. It's a combination of wanting to do little bits, because this is a lot of adjustment for a horse. Taking that much hoof off is a huge adjustment for their whole body. So it's a combination of that and just knowing I probably, even though she's being really good right now, I don't have all the time in the world to do this trim. Now I am going to pour some apple cider vinegar on here. I had a brush. Somehow I don't have that anymore with me. I treated her front feet a minute ago. I'm just going to rub this in here. I was using a brush to kind of stimulate the frogs, and I just want to get something on there. I'm going to start a thrush treatment for her regularly, but this is just what I have on me right now. And I feel like it's a little too much pressure right on that bar there. I want to taper it a little bit more. Same with right there. Stand these bars up a little bit also. On this right front foot, I'm doing a similar thing, just tapering these bars a little bit without bringing them down nearly as low as I would normally, and just slightly cleaning up the frog. This is the first trim on her back feet, so I really wanted to be less aggressive while also taking some of what needed to be taken, especially the thrushy parts. And this is her worst foot that she's, with her in her comfortability with me handling them. So that's why she keeps pulling her foot away. And also here, coming down in front of the heels and getting this hoof wall down much lower to the sole plane. relieving that extra pressure that's on it, and I'm going to just come back and do the heels after I know all this material needs to come off. And then I'm going to swoop up towards the heels, just like the other side, where I'm still leaving a lot of heel height. And again, she wanted to pull that there, and I just had to ask her to come on back and check the balance there. When you have not a lot to take, it's better to just switch to a rasp, especially a sharp rasp, because you can easily do too much with the nippers, or if it's not quite at the right angle. And I want to be really cautious on her here and just lightly using my knife to see where the sole is, where the bar is, and just kind of define that, because it's a lot of all grown together and loose material that will probably shed soon, but definitely don't want to take anything before it's going to shed on its own on her soles, because they are on the thinner side. And once I've done all this, I need to come and bevel, just like I'm doing. Start the bevel back at the quarters. The bevel is steepest at the toe. And again, with the toe, I will be taking it back more once I have the x-rays. I'm just starting to make these adjustments for her. These are huge adjustments. And I'm going to come all the way around the toe. Where's my apple cider vinegar? Set her foot down. Good girl. Just use the rest of it. There we go. At least just start to get that cleaned out. I wanted to go over what supplements I'm going to be giving Molly. This is, for her whole body health, but also specifically for her hooves, because she's got so much hoof wall separation, so many flares. Growing in a really strong, well-connected hoof wall cannot be done just by trimming. It has to have the proper nutrients, so that at a cellular level, that inner and outer hoof wall can form a strong connection. And I'll also say, I've not gotten her to actually eat any of these yet, but this is the plan. So California Trace is kind of like the baseline that I give all my horses. I've been giving it for like 20 years since I had my first horse. And it's naturally sourced. I just can't say enough good things about it. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really love it. But I am, in addition, giving some stuff from Mad Barn, and I don't have the label for California Trace, but I'll put it up on there. They do make a plus version, which I think I'll get next time, because this amino acid supplement, the main difference between the plus and the regular is it doesn't have as many aminos, which I want specifically for her because she's growing. But I just have so much of the regular California Trace because I buy a year's supply at a time. So that's why I'm adding in the aminos, but you can just get the California Trace Plus. So in addition to the California Trace, it does have zinc and copper in it already. This is just pure zinc and copper in the correct ratio, particularly because I'm on well water and I know it's high in iron, and iron can cancel out the absorption of zinc and copper. So I'm going to be giving a boosted amount of that on top. That's really important for whole body health, but specifically hooves. The copper is really important for forming strong connections with the collagen and elastin. And the zinc is just important for insulin resistance, which is also related to the food, like processing insulin. It's all tied together. Their absorptions are tied together. And they're two really important ones specifically for hooves. I think even more than biotin. Like, there's some biotin in the California Trace, but I'm not giving extra biotin on top of that, because for me, these other things are more important. So the zinc and copper, that's really important. Magnesium. This is a tub of magnesium, and I am not giving, there is no magnesium in the California Trace, and magnesium is just really important for muscular support, growing muscles. She's growing, absorption of nutrients in general, and our soils are pretty depleted of magnesium. I haven't tested the soils. Very loud helicopter, sorry about that. I haven't tested my soil or my grass, or, you know, I could get more in depth about it, but just generally I know that the soil is depleted of magnesium everywhere, and so I'm going to be giving her magnesium as well. I think it's really important, and I actually am going to be giving that to my other horses too. I'm going to add that into their supplements. And then the other one is amino acids. I mentioned it's lysine, methylene, and theanine. Those are like the three most important ones, and that's just for everywhere. It builds protein, so it's going for the body, the coat, the hooves, the muscles. She's growing. It's really important. All of these things are going to help that hoof wall grow out really strong, because mechanically I have to do a certain trim to stop the hoof wall being pulled apart like it's being. But even with the proper trim, it still won't have a healthy connection without the proper nutrients. And even with the proper nutrients, without the proper trim, it doesn't mean just because I start feeding these supplements the hoof wall is going to grow perfect. I have to also have her in a short trim cycle, do everything else correct. And then the other thing is salt. Salt is one that I even have mixed feelings about. I am going to put a salt block in there with her. Licking the salt block is so good, like licking with the tongue, for the hyoid, just for releasing all of that. And then the hyoid is connected to, there's like all these sternohyoid, all these chains of muscles and fascia coming from the hyoid. The hyoid is what the tongue is connected to. So I really like the salt block they can lick to get that hyoid stimulation and stretching. However, a horse would have to eat pretty much a giant salt block every month to get enough salt. So I will be putting loose salt, about a tablespoon a day, in her bucket as well. Right now, she has started to eat the plain alfalfa pellets. She didn't want the Timothy pellets, so I got alfalfa pellets. I don't do sweet feed. It's not a good idea. Keeping the sugars low is another really important thing for growing out a healthy hoof wall connection. She will now eat the alfalfa pellets plain, but I put just the California Trace in it, and she was spitting it out. So it's like a new flavor for her, I guess. She's going to have to get used to it. I've never had a horse do that, so this is a new one for me. We're just going to keep trying every day. The only thing that I have left out here is extra vitamin E. There is vitamin E in the California Trace, but sometimes I like to give a boosted amount of vitamin E. I'm just going to start with this, and we'll see what I end up adding in or taking out as the journey progresses. But for right now, these are the supplements that I'm going to be giving her to help these hooves and her whole body grow healthily. This has been day 6 with Molly, and she is coming along so nicely. We have accomplished so much. Today, I have a few goals. Start working, getting her used to having my fingers go in her mouth, just gently, get her face being touched, is something she's not super comfortable with. I just gave her a full grooming and brushed her tail for the first time. I also want to clean up her frogs today and do an apple cider vinegar treatment and just clean up any flaps, so those frogs can start healing. I really just want to get her super comfortable with me handling all her feet, because when I trimmed her feet the first time, I kind of had to, work with her patience and with what trimming needs to be done. So when we're really doing a lot of rehab work, her knowing how to hold up her feet and pick them up is going to be a huge help. Oh, good girl. When I let her feet down, I want to set them down and follow to the ground, not just drop it and startle her. If I want her to pick up her feet when I ask, I gotta be polite with her too. Just dropping her foot on the ground, it's not very polite. It goes both ways. Good girl. This whole sole looks like it's about to pop out, but I'm gonna let it pop out on its own. Or maybe give it a few more days. Easy. Got a wire brush and a hard toothbrush. I'm gonna see what she can handle and what works best, but I really want to clean out all the crevices of this frog. And I have slightly diluted apple cider vinegar. Today we're working on her feet picking up really easily. I also want to maybe do a slight amount of trimming. Very minimal. Bring these heels back a little bit without taking too much height. To really get in this frog. We're also just kind of working on her handling her feet, which she's getting so much better at already. The first time I trimmed her, I had to have my mom scratch her the whole time to let me do her back feet. And now I'm just picked up her back feet. I took pictures of them, I cleaned them out. So she's really making amazing progress. And this might be a little sensitive. She's doing really good. I want to kind of see what's in this crevice there. Take a little bit of that bar, taper it a little bit more. I don't want too much pressure on one spot, and it seems like a high spot. Here we go. A little bit of diluted apple cider vinegar. Don't need a ton. I'm gonna also art a mud on top of it. I left this tub open in the sun, so it got a little dried out, but I don't have any more yet. I ordered it. And so this is just gonna have to do for right now. Easy. Probably doesn't like me poking on her frog too much. I really just want to rub all that over, all around there. Now this foot, she popped this huge chunk of sole out. which is totally fine. She has, you know, pretty deep collateral grooves at the front. Her x-rays, I'm gonna get them. I think the x-ray tech is coming out in like a week and a half, so I'm gonna be really curious what's on there. I'll make predictions. I'll make a video predicting what I think it's gonna be, and we'll see how correct I am or how wrong I am. But I want to trim up these flaps of No Good Frog. I don't want to let this infection keep proliferating. It's really important to and there's really not nearly as much thrush as I thought when I first picked up the foot. What I really want this frog to grow healthy and be stimulated. There we go. And I am going to let the rest of this sole pop out when it's ready. I'm not going to force it to. Just kind of rub this on here. The moist apple cider vinegar will help it spread out easier. There we go. It's so good for the hoof. Easy, 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 easy. This back foot needs some more work. She was really hesitant about me doing her back feet before, but this heel is higher. Girl. Let's have this bar. I'm keeping this bar as support, but I don't want all the weight on the bar. So I want to make sure it's not sticking up higher. And this frog is a little bit too high also. Let's see. Let's clean up the collateral grooves. There are definitely here we go. I don't want it sticking up quite as high, and if I'm correct, there we go. That frog was ready to shed. Much better. Okay. Because it's really a balance. If you want definitely the frog to become weight bearing when the hoof lands, but if the frog is sticking up too high, then it's too much pressure on the frog and it won't want to do a heel first landing. Not enough pressure, no heel first landing. Too much pressure, no heel first landing. So it's really, we moved. I need to go get the rest of my tools. But it's really a balancing act. This back foot's very similar to the other one. It doesn't naturally tilt as much, or I shouldn't say naturally. The state it's in is not putting as much of a twist on it. But this frog is at a similar stage. And I'm not trying to take away all the material. I just want to get as much of the bad parts out as I can. And I don't need to do it all at once. There we go. I'm gonna check her heels. I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the other side, just ever so slightly. And the same thing like I mentioned on the other bar. I just don't want it to be too much pressure on the bar. It's a balance. Okay. There we go. Round the toe a little bit. Really, it's about... The reason most of these problems have happened in her feet is because there's been way too much weight bearing on the hoof wall. So to correct it, I have to relieve that weight bearing off the wall consistently. But in the balancing act of not making her too tender to walk just on her soles. So it's about building up the soles at the same time. So that's why I'm absolutely not trimming the soles, because I am trimming the walls. And I'm putting more of the weight onto the sole, the frog, and the bars, which is okay. It's meant to bear weight. Not all of it, but this wall's been bearing way too much weight.